This is the 13th part in my Pharmacist podcasters series. My guest today is Dr. Brooke Griffin, host of the 5 Minute Pep Talk podcast. Welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, episode 357. I'm your host, Ohio pharmacist Kim Newlove. In this series, my guests and I talk about podcasting, of course, to inspire you to start your own podcast, be a podcast guest, or just use your voice in general. If you're interested in podcasting, podcasting, or public speaking, you need to listen to this episode. At this time, I'd like to introduce my guest. Dr. Brooke Griffin, PharmD, is a professor of pharmacy practice and vice chair of clinical services at Midwestern University College of Pharmacy. She is a professional coach in life and work, and she's passionate about offering career support through a thought-provoking and creative process. In the year 2022, she launched Bold Idea Group with a mission to inspire bold ideas from within. She loves providing a positive space in our profession while acknowledging that it's a roller coaster of excitement and stress. For coaching tools, inspiration, and to learn more about Brooke, listen to her 5-minute podcast called 5-Minute Pep Talk. She's on a self-development journey alongside all of you and believes that every pharmacist deserves a coach. You can find Brooke's bio, which I just read, links to her podcast, her website, and her social media channels in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Brooke Griffin. Hi, Brooke. Welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast.
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's my pleasure. Congratulations on your podcast. I've been listening to it.
Oh my God, you're going to make me blush already. We haven't even started. I have been looking up to you, Kim, for a really long time, ever since we connected a few years ago. And I've been watching you with your podcast, and you've totally been an inspiration to me. Even though we haven't really connected or chatted since then, I have been lurking. Let's just say lurking, not creepily.
Well, thank you for lurking. Thank you for following my journey. I've been following yours, and I was very pleased to see that it's a short podcast because then if I haven't listened for a while, then I can kind of binge them or pick and choose. I love
There you
it. I
go.
love the format. Yes.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yes, the 5-minute pep talk. How'd you come up with that format anyway? Solo show, 5 minutes long.
It was something that I was looking for myself, Kim. I've always been an avid podcast listener. On my commutes, while I'm doing laundry, while I'm doing dishes. I think you're probably very similar. I love podcasts. I love learning new things. I love all genres. And what I found is that on my way to work, I was looking for something like a little boost, like a little motivation, something that I could just pop on after I parked in the garage, before I walked into that building, just to remind me of why I'm there, who I am, just a chance to reflect on what strengths I may bring that day, or something positive to think about as I approach the day. And I couldn't quite find what I was looking for. Something that felt realistic and not too fluffy. Not that I'm not a religious or spiritual person, but not anything in that realm either. I was just looking for something to kind of help me get the day started, or something that I could turn to if a meeting didn't go so well and I needed a short little boost to kind of like a reset button. So I asked myself the question that I've asked myself whenever I think about starting something new is this something that I would subscribe to? Is this something that I would listen to? Is this a webinar that I would sign up for? And that has served me really well when I think about new creative projects. So I knew that I was looking for something short. I was looking for something motivational. So I thought, I'll just try this myself.
It sounds like you created the podcast that you yourself needed.
That's exactly it.
I did
Yes.
that with my second podcast, and much respect to you because I think you're serving your former and current selves.
You hit the nail on the head, Kim. I am getting so much value out of this small creative project. That has been one of the biggest surprises to me, is how much it's fueling my creative juices, how much it's stretching me in terms of skill set, not just technology wise, but also my comfort zone. putting yourself out there in different ways, putting your thoughts out there. It's just been a wonderful experience. The fact that some people tell me they find it helpful is like icing on the cake because I feel like this is just a creative outlet for me right now. I did blog for a while, and that did the same thing for me. This is just another version of that.
When you talked about putting yourself out there, I know what you mean because you're letting people know, you're letting your audience know what you're paying attention to or what thoughts are going through your mind. And then you're putting something out there to try to give them a pep talk about that topic. I know what you mean, where it can be kind of like you can be self conscious because it's like, do I want to let people know I was recently thinking about John Candy? It's kind of an odd thing to think about. So, would you like to comment on that? That was a recent episode.
Yes. Oh my God. Thanks for bringing that up and listening to it. I have been finding that I am getting ideas for podcast episodes in really strange places. And to your point, this is kind of letting someone in on the very weird observations we have about the world. And not everyone has to like it or subscribe to it, but you're putting it out there anyway. And your spin on maybe a new way of thinking about things or a different approach to things, it does feel a little nerve wracking. But I'm working my way through it. I'm coaching my way through it, and I guess that's part of the journey.
It is a journey, isn't it? Now, for anybody who has not binged episodes like I have, or even listened to a single episode, how would you describe the 5 Minute Pep Talk?
It's a 5 minute pep talk for anyone who needs a little boost to get through their day. It actually wasn't the original name of the podcast. The original name of the podcast was Today's Bold Idea, which was a play on words because my business name is Bold Idea Group. And my initial intent was to publish episodes daily. So it was going to be a 5 minute Today's Bold Idea. I was listening to a podcast expert on their podcast, and they were mentioning that your podcast name should be exactly what it is so people can find it. And I found that whenever I was describing the podcast to someone, I would call it a 5 minute pep talk. So I'm like, I should just change the name to 5 minute pep talk. And then there's this other piece of the title, which is really interesting that I learned about called the title extension, which is everything after the colon. So 5 minute pep talk. And then the rest of the title is coaching, motivation, and mindset for pharmacists. And that is still there. And I guess these podcast extensions exist to help searchability and visibility. If people are using search terms to search for something, it's not necessarily for pharmacists. I feel like I use a couple of pharmacy terms here and there, but that's how I would describe it to people.
Thanks for the description. I know what you mean by when you talk about your audience, like you have identified your audience in that subtitle or the title extension, as you called it. And when you step up to the mic, do you feel like you're talking to pharmacists?
It's such an interesting question because I think with podcasting, you never really know. Even with all of the stats we have available to us, we really have no idea who's listening. I picture a pharmacist. I picture someone like me who just is craving a new way of looking at a situation or thinking about something or a possible way to reframe a negative thought that just won't leave you alone. So I guess I do actually picture a pharmacist, but I don't think that's the only audience out there. It's fascinating to think about that we really have no idea.
That is true. We don't know unless our audience reaches out to us. So think that kind of leads into another question. Does your audience reach out to you?
I have heard from a few close people via text and email and some coworkers in person. And that has been really great and validating. And almost everybody, Kim, says that they appreciate the 5 minute duration. Almost everybody. That's almost the first thing that comes out of their mouths. And I'm like, what about the content? And they're like, yeah, we like the 5 minutes.
I like that you get to the point right away. I'm a very direct person and I
Mm,
appreciate other direct people. So, yeah, keep that up. Keep up the
yeah,
good work there.
right. Thanks.
You're welcome. I, of course, help pharmacists and technicians start podcasts. And I like to talk to them about when you step up to the mic, you need to have somebody in mind that you're talking to. Otherwise, it'll sound like you're trying to appease everybody and talk to everybody. So, for my podcast, The Pharmacist's Voice, I think that I am talking to pharmacists, pharmacy students, pharmacy technicians, pharmacy professors, pharmacy owners, and all the like, right? So, I'm teaching them drug pronunciations because I know my audience needs to learn drug pronunciations. I have a pharmacist authors series to inspire other pharmacists to become authors too. I have this Pharmacist Podcasters series where I'm trying to inspire my audience, who includes pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, and so on, to start a podcast too. I've got all these different things. Now, if I thought that I was speaking to hairdressers, I think I would develop different content. So I really do think that your content is applicable to pharmacists, but I think a lot of other people would gain value from it as well.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I appreciate all of the different series that you're doing because, from a podcaster's point of view, I think it also extends not only our reach and visibility, but I think it also extends our skill set because you're speaking to someone different and you might be using a different framework, even if you're repeating yourself in several of those series. I think it's just an amazing opportunity as a podcaster to reach different people in different ways and almost have different chapters in a book. And I appreciate that about the whole experience.
Thank you very much. I think of it as conducting an orchestra, and I've got the woodwinds, the brass, the percussion. Maybe I got some vocalists. I got the pianist over there, the harpist. And when I do each of these segments of podcast episodes, I am talking specifically to the woodwinds or, the brass or whatever. Like I've got the authors, the podcasters, the people that want to learn their drug pronunciations. Maybe I've got these people that nerd out on poisoning prevention. We're all kind of in the orchestra, but we're just in a different section or a different seat. So I can direct
Mm.
my focus to them and focus on them for a particular episode.
Yeah, I love that.
Thanks is one way to do it. Well, I understand that you have quite a few episodes because you've been doing this for a while. Have you hit 200 yet? I can't remember.
No, I just recorded 153. So we're in the 150s.
Okay, you got there in a very short period of time, right?
Yeah, let me think. I officially launched July of 2024. And my cadence was inconsistent in the beginning because, again, my goal was to try to hit daily. I never got there. I got to 3 times a week was my max. And now I've kind of settled into twice a week, which is working right now because I still work at the College of Pharmacy and I still coach and I have other aspects of my business. So this is a cadence that feels good to me and feels sustainable. I never want any of my projects or creative outlets to feel like a burden. This is the approach that I'm currently taking with the podcast. Will that change in the future? I don't know. But I also like to celebrate all of the little milestones that I hit along the way. And I do feel like I'm taking the audience on the journey with me and sharing some of these milestones with them. And there's something about that that feels light and fun for me.
Well, I appreciate the transparency that you're showing by talking about how you have adjusted your production schedule based on what feels right for you and sustainable. I love that word sustainable because when you first start a podcast, it's really arbitrary what production schedule you choose. Some people choose once a week, like I did, and I was able to hang on for almost 6 years here. But I'm going to be going to monthly starting in the end of January of 2026. And it's arbitrary at first. You started with 3 days a week and then you changed it to twice a week. And at some point, you may change it again. But it's important for anybody who's thinking about starting a podcast to know that it's a recipe and you can change your recipe.
Yes. And I've also heard, Kim, and I'd love to get your feedback on this, that podcasting is a long game. There are podcasters who have seasons and they choose to end after a certain amount of episodes. But in general, from what I understand, it's a journey that is going to shapeshift over time and to not get kind of locked into this is how it's going to be because of life and because of your interest change or feedback from your audience. I don't know. What's your feedback on that?
I like that you brought up the theme, the long game, because depending on what you want to do with your podcast, heck yeah, it's the long game. Some people start a podcast because they want to make money. And I have heard that with not just pharmacists, but so many people, they want to build an audience that they can then sell something to. That totally is the long game because they are not going to buy anything from you unless they know they like you, they trust you. Know, like, and trust, right? They have to know, like, and trust before they will spend a penny. And I'm giving out free samples all the time. And every once in a while, I'll say, hey, and if you like this episode or you want to start a podcast too, come on over and, check out kimnewlove.com. I've got an online podcasting class. I've got this, book that I wrote called Pharmacist Podcaster, etc. But if I hadn't developed an audience first and a newsletter and all these things, I don't know that people would have trusted me with their money or they would not have trusted me as a thought leader. So that for sure is the long game. But I do have another podcast that I do. It's a hobby podcast. It's a local podcast called the Perrysburg Podcast. And that I set up as a 3-year service project. And I love it so much. I don't know if I can let it go after 3 years because I'm in year 3 and it's supposed to end in July. So there is no long game there. It's just making it to the end. Podcasting's whatever you want it to be, but depending on what you want to do with it, heck yeah, it's the long game because you can't start off just thinking you're going to end after 6 or 7 episodes, which is actually the average of what people do. A lot of people get really passionate about starting a podcast. They only make it to episode 6 or 7, and then they, for lack of a better term, they poop out and they pod fade. So if you want to have a long run with your podcast, it is the long game. That's what you opened up saying. I 100% agree. It is the long game.
I'm really glad you brought up the know, like, and trust factor because I've definitely heard that in my podcast research. And even when you think about buying programs from someone who gave a free webinar or has a course that you may want to buy. And I'm wondering what you think. What is it about hearing someone's voice over time that does that for people? Because I've definitely experienced this on the listener side of things. I have listened to podcasters now, some for years now. And I do feel like I know them. I've never met them. And I know some choose to share more personal aspects about their lives than others. What is it about hearing their voice over time that builds that know, like, and trust?
Great question. See, look at you. You're such a podcaster. You're making the host the guest now. I love it. No, it's the classic Donald Miller thing from what is that book called?
Oh, StoryBrand?
Yeah, it's empathy and authority. You can say, I've been you before. You listening to this. I know what it's like to be at the beginning of the podcast journey. I've been there twice. I started 2 podcasts, but I've also started them and successfully carried them through for more than 100 episodes. So the second podcast I've carried through to episode 117, 118 comes out this week. Today we're recording this on Monday, October 20th, 2025. And the first podcast, The Pharmacist's Voice, that you're listening to right now, this is going to be episode 350 something, right? So empathy, I know what it's like, and authority, I've done it. So there's something about that combination of empathy and authority that builds trust. That's my answer.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to write that down and think about that a little bit more. I have not necessarily sold anything to my audience. I have advertised my free webinar. I've talked about the coaching that I do. And I've mentioned that I have group coaching sessions coming up, or I think I did an episode on free walk and talk coaching so people can get a kind of a taste of what it's like to be coached. So I guess you could consider that selling. But I didn't think about it in terms of the empathy and authority lens that may be speaking to people and even the people that I'm listening to, why I feel so not compelled to buy, but I'm more likely to buy from someone that I've been in their orbit for 3 years.
I think if they have a good story too, and they come right out with the transformation that they can offer. For example, you're a pharmacist out there and you're a thought leader on something, and you just want to get your voice out there so you can share it with the world and educate people or whatever your MO is. If you tell them that I will take you from a listener to a podcaster, they might be more interested because you're offering the transformation they desire. So there's a lot of storytelling, I think, that goes into people actually buying something. But then you also have to be the right messenger. I know I am not the right messenger for a lot of people, but I have actually found more success working locally with people than I have working with pharmacists online. And I'll tell you, it was a big surprise. It's one of the biggest surprises of podcasting and podcast coaching that I've come across. The library let me come in. I filled up a room. I have not exactly filled a room at this place that I teach at, but I have had consistently like 5 students come in at a time at this local place. I have had more in-person podcasting students that I've had online. More people locally in my own area geographically want to hear from me than pharmacists. That blew my mind. So I think there's something about me being one of them that really appeals to them. And even though I'm a pharmacist, sometimes pharmacists do not find me to be the right messenger for some reason. I think it just kind of depends on the person who's looking to buy, what kind of messenger do they want to hear from? That's my experience.
Wow, I'm really surprised to hear that too. And it reminds me of even the entrepreneurial journey where you're not going to vibe with everyone. Not everyone's going to want to buy from you. You're not going to be everyone's person. You could have the result that they're looking for, but you're not for everyone. And I think that's a lesson that every entrepreneur needs to learn on their journey, myself included. So I know there's certain people that I don't vibe with, that I'm not interested in buying their program. And that's just, I guess, part of human life.
That is. I think you're the right messenger for a good many people. And how is your coaching business going? Would you like to talk about your coaching business?
Oh, thank you, Kim. Well, what you mentioned earlier was really interesting about taking people through the transformation from, listener to podcaster and showing them how that transformation is possible. That very much aligns with the coaching experience when you can say to someone, "Hey, I was in your shoes. I know what it's like to feel stuck." I work with a lot of pharmacists and faculty members who are just fed up in one area of their life. Usually it's career oriented. They're not sure if they want to stay or want to go, or they want to practice in a different area. A lot of times they are overworked and they're looking for ways to reduce that workload without leaving their position and not having that guilt associated with maybe their workload being pushed on other people. And they want more time for self care. They're not really sure how to make that happen. These are some of the themes that come up with the people that I coach. So, for my coaching business, I do offer one on one coaching, I do offer group coaching from time to time. Some people love being a part of a group and hear how other people are coached and hear other people's experiences, and it helps them feel less alone. And there are some people that really want that individualized attention. Let's talk for a full hour on everything that's going on in your brain, and let's start to sort and prioritize. Coaching has been so transformational for me in my personal life that I decided to become a coach myself in order to help my colleagues and peers. So it is one of those pinch me kind of moments when I do really feel privileged to be on the other side, sharing some of these tools with my colleagues that have been so helpful to me. And I think that's what I'm doing through the podcast too, is sharing some of the tools. If people are not sure if they're interested in hiring a coach, but maybe they want to dabble in using some of these self-coaching tools, it's definitely possible. For me, I needed that plus a facilitated environment with a coach. But you can definitely get started, like you said, by any of this free available content out there.
Thanks for talking about your coaching practice. It sounds like you are a career coach and you take pharmacists or sounds like professors like yourself who are stuck and you help them move forward with their career. And do they leave their jobs then? Are they adding a side hustle or one or the other or both?
That's a great question.
I'm curious about the transformation you offer, Brooke.
I've been coaching pharmacists and faculty members for a little over 5 years now. And I would say my sweet spot is helping people figure out their next step, clarity in their next step. And that is a wide range of things depending on who's in front of me. Sometimes it's easier to talk about what I don't coach on. Sometimes pharmacists or faculty members will come to me and they know they want to leave their position and they want help finding their next role. And I don't necessarily help with job searching or CV or resume reviews. I do a little bit of interview prep if somebody requests it, but I don't necessarily help promise that I can land them their dream role or get into a certain pharmacy niche. There are coaches who do that, and I happily refer anyone who's looking for that. And that's happened several times. I would say my coaching more focuses on the self discovery process of defining what our strengths are, what our values are, what we bring to the table, saying it in an authentic way, bringing your authentic self to work. I feel like these are the foundational things that any professional needs. If we are so fed up with our jobs and we don't work on these things and then we leave, we're just bringing all of that with us. And then the next thing that gets us fed up at our future job, we're going to go through the same motions again. So I would much rather, unless it's a toxic environment, I never encourage anyone to stay in a toxic environment. But if someone is just not sure what their next step should be, whether that's side hustle, whether that's leaving their position, whether that's going for the promotion, whether that's taking a step back and going part time, whatever they're contemplating, through a series of exercises and deep reflection and powerful questions, I help them get to who they want to be or where they want to go.
Sounds kind of like, yes, next steps, but also a vision too, like a vision of where they want to go.
Yes, and you're right, Kim. That is sometimes the hardest part, even defining what is it that I want. And for a lot of times, it's there, it's just buried under a lot of workload and shoulds and expectations of others. A lot of times, the first few sessions are just kind of shedding some of those things so we can get at what is it that you really want. Let's not feel guilty about just saying it out loud or writing it down. It doesn't mean we're definitely going to do that. You definitely are going to go in that direction. We're just exploring here. And for somebody to do that in a non judgmental space, usually with someone who's outside of your organization, is incredibly helpful. It was helpful to me when I was in the client seat, and I can see that it's helpful now that I'm in the coach's seat.
Thanks for talking about that. And if someone listening to this today not only wants to hear your podcast, but also might want to explore coaching with you, how do they do that?
Oh, thank you for asking and for offering. I would say starting with the podcast is a really good way to get an idea of what my coaching style might be like, some of the exercises and tools that I use. My website is boldideagroup.com. That has a few other resources on it. If someone is on Facebook, then I have a private Facebook group called Bold Idea Group, and I post something inspirational or motivational every day at 5 a.m. Central. So sometimes I might advertise or share some things there.
I feel like you're giving away free samples in the podcast, and I think that's a really smart idea.
Thank you, Kim. And what I've noticed over the past few years is that we don't have a lot of people or spaces in our professional lives to explore some of these things. The way that our institutions and our infrastructures are set up, we may have a supervisor, we may have a mentor. However, for me, that wasn't enough to help me feel unstuck. I needed a third space to sort through all of the thoughts I was having about relationships at work, my workload, my work life balance, all of the things. So I am trying to offer something different to the pharmacy profession in terms of coaching conversations that we can have a career relationship that's not a supervisor, that's not a mentor, that might be able to unlock something in you that has felt stuck for a long time. And I've encountered a lot of pharmacists and faculty members who just feel that they have no one to talk to. So if the podcast is a great entryway for them to get a feeling of what it might be like to interact with a coach, that's wonderful.
Yeah, not only do they get inspiration and motivation, but they also get, you're a resource too, a resource like a career coach resource.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think on the podcast I've mentioned a couple times, like, this is a library of resources to use. So I like thinking about it that way.
Yeah, and as a pharmacist, I love resources. So
That's
that's
true.
good. And in audio, no less. Like you were talking about when you opened up, you were talking about you needed podcasts to listen to, and you were looking for something that was kind of inspiration and motivation that you could listen to while you were doing dishes or walking the dog or exercising or whatever. Yeah. So I like the theme. It's very you, Brooke. It's very you.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Kim. That means a lot.
No problem. Now, once the audience hears your message, we've talked about inspiration and motivation and being a resource, but is there anything in particular that you want your audience to do with the information once they hear your messages on the podcast?
For some episodes, I have titled them self coaching questions. And what I imagine is that someone might hear that question and then actually take the time later to write it down and see what comes up for them. Examples might be, what is a recent win? How do you want your life to look in 1 year? What if there were no right or wrong decisions for someone who's contemplating something? I guess it's the professor in me who just wants them to use the tool or reflect on an activity for that personal growth and that personal change.
Yeah, you want them to do their homework, right?
Yeah, that would be great. I think they'll get incredible insight if they took the time to either just reflect on it quietly with their eyes closed or write it down if they're writers.
All right. I love where this conversation is going because I want to tell you something that I've already privately messaged you about. And that is that you had an episode titled The Year of No. Would you like to talk about the year of no?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. This was an episode based on a part of a presentation that I gave. And this started when a couple of years ago, I felt a little overwhelmed with everything on my plate professionally. And I felt like I was saying yes to things because I had said yes to them in the past, or because it was something in my position that I quote should do, or that was expected of me, but didn't necessarily align with what I actually wanted to do. So, outside of the required things we have to do for work, there are extra professional development things that come our way that fall into this category. So, I decided that I'm going to start the year of no, and that anytime something comes my way, if I decide to say no to it, I'm going to document it in a Google Doc and see how this goes as an experiment. So, things came across my desk like guest editing a journal, co authoring an article, chairing a committee, things that I didn't necessarily need for my position, but were really wonderful opportunities on the surface. Just I didn't have time for or no longer had interest in. So they made the list the year of no. And I have been really fascinated with this idea of why we say yes or no to certain things that come our way. I've developed a whole CE on this topic, and I decided to include the year of no experiment in the CE, and people are really resonating with it. And one of the stories that I share is that when I looked back at that Google Doc, I realized I only lasted a month. That was all I needed to have enough evidence and to build that muscle to say, okay, I don't need to document these things anymore. I'm building this muscle of it's okay to say no, and the guilt is not there. There's so much more to it, but what did you want to share about it?
I think prior to me going in this direction, I had asked once your audience hears your message, what do you want them to do with the information? So I'm going to tell you what I'm doing with the information.
Oh, yay.
From the Year of No episode, I'm actually going to be doing some journaling in the year 2026. I have to say no to some things. I just can't keep up with the pace of everything in my life that I've had up until now. I have a special needs kiddo that graduated in May of 2025, and I didn't know how that would impact me moving forward. I thought maybe he would go to a certain program during a school day like structure, 9A to 3P type of a thing. And he didn't. So we've got caregivers that come over 5, maybe 6 days a week and give me a break for 5 hours a day. And I'm finding that I can't really pack my whole entire life, my waking hours into 5 hours. So it's become necessary for me to say no to a lot of things. And in the year 2026, I'm going to be documenting my wins in a journal called Winning is in My DNA 15 Minutes to Daily Self Reflection. It's a journal, right? So I already keep track of what I do every day. And I'm kind of sick of every single day circling things or highlighting things that I didn't get done. There are
Mm.
things that I need to start saying no to so I can say yes to more things. I've actually got the author, Dr. Sandra Anye, on the podcast for episode 353, which hasn't come out yet. But she talks about this journal, and we talk about me using this for the year of no in 2026. So I'm going to reflect on daily wins, things that I actually did get done instead of circling and highlighting the things that I didn't, and talking about how I felt when I said no to something. There's a feelings section, and I'm going to talk about the feels. Like, how does it feel? As a woman, a lot of us take on so much because we want to be super mom and do all the things. And we have done all the things up to this point. But I'm 47, Brooke. Dang it. I have to start saying no to some stuff. And then I have to learn about what kind of time did I free up for myself by saying no? And so it's kind of an experiment, kind of like you just said, you did a month-long experiment to say no to things and see how you felt and see what kind of time it opened up for you. I'm doing that. So you have inspired me. That is what I'm taking away from that episode, the year of no. The year 2026 is going to be my year of no. It may only take me a month to see a pattern, but that is what I'm doing.
Oh, I love that, Kim. The audience can't see me, but my jaw dropped when you showed me the journal, and I'm just beaming. This is really exciting because saying no takes a hell of a lot of courage in today's world with everything on our plate. And what I have found with working with so many clients is that it becomes more difficult as the seasons of life change. When we have different expectations, we can't necessarily do everything that we've always done when our timelines have changed, when our daily schedules have changed, when our kids have changed. So I give you a ton of credit for recognizing that you need to slow down in some areas of your life because you want to be more intentional with other aspects of your life. So say no takes a hell of a lot of courage. I'm very proud of you. I can't wait to see where this experiment goes.
Thank you. I'll have to give you some feedback. Probably in the middle of winter, like middle of February, I'll reach out and let you know how it's going. It's not going to be easy at first because saying no can be really, really hard.
Yes, yes. Saying no is a conversation. Saying no is not necessarily a wall, but it's a boundary. And we all
Boundary.
need to build this self advocacy muscle. And it sometimes we need to start small with those professional development activities, and sometimes we need to go big with the actual time I need to take care of myself during the day.
The word that stuck out the most about what you just said was boundaries. Yeah, I need to create new boundaries. Yep. I'll let you know how it goes.
I love it.
All right, let's lighten the mood a little bit here. Let's talk about what is your favorite thing about podcasting?
So much, Kim, really. I am just getting so much out of this experience. I'm learning and I'm growing with every single episode. Every time I jot down notes or ideas for a future episode, my brain has to think of a way to package it concisely in a way that will be approachable and understandable. And even the technology aspect, I do all of my own editing and posting, and I know that's going to come as a shock because it's so flawless.
It
But
sounds really good. I don't doubt you, but I know that's the hardest thing about podcasting, right? Or at least I think so.
yes, it's hard. It's hard. I'm making my way through it. It's not flawless, but it's getting there. And it's a big learning curve, and so it's challenging me in those ways. It's sharpening my decision making skills, which is really interesting. I'm practicing my presentation skills with every episode. I'm sharing what has worked for me in order to maybe help someone else who's on a similar journey. It fuels my desire to give back to my profession. So I could go on and on, but those are all some of my favorite things about podcasting.
Awesome. Those are good ones too. I like it. Now, on the flip side, what's been your biggest challenge of podcasting?
Definitely belief in myself. I had to coach myself on whether I even wanted to do this podcast or not. And I was coached by so many coaches. They were probably sick of me talking about this. Um, we all struggle with negative thoughts. That's normal. I've given CEs on that topic. I can think about it from a rational point of view. However, when it's something that kind of pokes around in your head, like when these negative thoughts start to emerge, especially when anybody is starting something new, that's when the thoughts tend to stick out for me. Believing that I have something worthwhile to share, believing I could keep it up, believing people that actually want to listen. So it's not all consuming, but it's there. And I can coach myself through it. And I can remind myself that those are just negative voices. And I can also tell myself that those are really externally driven. They're all about the outcomes and what people may think. But what's most important here is how do I feel about it? And what do I think? And what are my internal motivators? And then I get okay. And then I get to work.
Every episode I have ever listened to of yours, it just sounds like you're owning it. So, whatever headspace you have had to get into in order to overcome all that you just talked about, you're there, you're doing it.
Oh, wonderful.
I don't detect any self-consciousness or doubt.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not there all the time. It just peeks its head out and in surprising ways, even after 100 episodes. Sometimes it just comes out and then I just have to coach myself through it, which I think I tell people all the time, like, I'm on this journey with you. I'm not a guru on top of a mountain with all of these wonderful coaching tools. And now I have no stress in my life. That is the opposite. I'm in the muck with everybody else. So I don't mind sharing that sometimes self belief gets the best of me.
Thank you. I think that's very important for my podcasting students who may be listening to this to hear from you because they may be no different. And we all have to overcome that. What is that called? Imposter syndrome. I
Hmm.
had never heard of imposter syndrome until I started podcasting and I had a guest on. It was Oh, it was Mike Lenz, who's a pharmacist, voice actor, and podcast host. And he said, maybe you've got a little imposter syndrome. And I said, I don't know what that is. So I had to learn. But then once you know what it is, it's almost like those things that we talk about, stigma goes away when we bring things to light. So thank you for talking about those challenges that you face.
Yeah, thank you. And even for your podcast students, just know that you may not get to a place where it's gone forever. Like even if you get over that initial hump, life happens, things happen, and it could peek its ugly head.
I hear you. Even after almost 6 years, I had an episode recently where I really let my freak flag fly. And I was talking about how I like to organize information. And I talked about my books that I wanted to read and how I have a book list. I organize a list of books that I want to read. And there's a lot of other things I organize too, like family meals and things. And anyways, I felt a little self-conscious sharing that. And you're right. I have been doing this for 6 years and I'm still not over myself when it comes to that.
I listened to that episode, Kim, and I would say I loved it. I loved learning more about you and what makes you tick. I was surprised with the binders. I'll just let people listen to it and assess for their own. It's just something that it's a level that I don't see myself ever doing, but I loved learning about you and everybody. All the experts say the more we share our quote weirdness, the more we're going to attract the people that want to dance with us.
Well, we just talked about a little advice for future podcasters. We were talking about the imposter syndrome and overcoming some of the things that are in our own heads. Do you have any other advice for future podcasters?
The book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, either read or listen to. By the end of the book, she will have convinced you that what you have is actually the best thing in the world and you would be silly not to do it. So that's my first recommendation. The second thing I would recommend is to make a list of all the things you would talk about on your podcast, like episode ideas. There's an author, Mark Schaefer, and he said if you can get to 25, you have something. He had a book called Known, and he said when people have an idea, they should, number one, get as niche as possible. Number two, pick a method, like if you like to write, blog. If you like camera, then YouTube. If you like audio, then podcast. And number three, write this list.
That is some good advice. And I think you just named two more books from a book list, right?
Oh, you haven't read Big Magic?
No, not yet. But Elizabeth Gilbert wrote Eat, Pray, Love, correct?
She did.
Yes, and I loved that book. So of course I'm going to have to check this out. I've been making it through a few books lately, so the list is getting a little shorter. It's possible I might get to that within the next, 2 years.
Yes. Well, if you need a cheerleader instantly, move that one up.
Okay. As we start to wrap this up, I want to see if there's anything I haven't covered yet. Oh, what surprised you most about starting a podcast? Anything surprise you?
This may sound strange, but there is something very fun and playful about it. I don't know if it's because I'm still in the honeymoon phase, but it's been over a year, but I am just having a lot of fun. I don't know if it's because we grew up listening to the radio and it feels
Mm.
like I'm playing radio. But there's something about it that's fun and playful, and I hope that stays for a while.
Nice. It seems like you enjoy it after more than 150 episodes. So that's a really good sign. I think you can take it for a lot longer. I'll be listening. Where can my audience find your podcast?
They can find it anywhere, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Those would probably be the two main suggestions I would have.
Okay, I listen to you on Apple Podcasts and it's audio only, correct?
It is.
Okay. I syndicate my episodes to YouTube, so it's audio only. I just wanted to give you that piece of advice. That's an option out there too.
Thank you. I do see that on the website that I use, but I haven't clicked on it yet. So thank you for the nudge.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's only the second biggest search engine on the planet, right? YouTube.
Right. I should tap into it.
Just an idea for you. I think you're doing everything right. I think you got lots of good stuff. I love the episodes. And like I said, I can just pick and choose if I haven't listened for a while. And it's really nice because I can listen to like 4 a day and binge them, and I get a lot out of them. And I even got the year of no from you. So I will be journaling in 2026.
I really appreciate that, Kim. Thank you.
Yep. Just about done here. One last question before I ask if you want to, promote anything or what's coming up here. What would you have done differently if you could go back in time and start your podcast again?
One thing I didn't do, I didn't post on LinkedIn for a very long time. I'm not sure why. I still don't post regularly about it. It's something I'm coaching myself on. So maybe I would do that a little bit earlier and more regularly.
Okay, that's fair. Once I learned how to do a LinkedIn newsletter, I just knew that that's where I was going to post my podcast episodes. So, piece of
Okay.
advice from me to you.
Thank
It,
you.
it works for me. Maybe it'll work for you too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. Now, anything coming up that you want to promote here for the rest of 2025 or anything coming up in 2026? Conferences, books, any big projects?
Thank you for this opportunity. I'll just mention again that if somebody's on Facebook and they want a daily post to start their day, the free Facebook group is Bold Idea Group. And usually, if I have a free webinar or any coaching programs, I'll advertise it there. I'll be at ASHP Midyear, that conference in December. And please connect with me on LinkedIn and say that you heard me on this podcast. I would love to hear that that's how we connected.
Awesome. You've got a lot of good stuff coming up. And I didn't know about the Facebook group, so I'm going to have to join that. Can anybody join that?
Yes, anybody can join. Oh, I would love to have you in there, Kim.
As soon as we're done, I'm going to go join that because I would love
Yes.
to just see more of what you're up to.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for being here today on the Pharmacist Voice podcast, Brooke. You take care.
Thank you, Kim, so much. Have a good day.
Thanks again to Dr. Brooke Griffin for being my guest today. Podcasting obviously was the focus of our conversation, and I really enjoyed learning more about the 5 Minute Pep Talk podcast. You don't know what the genesis of a podcast is unless you ask. So I really enjoyed hearing all about the episodes, the frequency, how she came up with it, how it's the podcast that she herself needed, all the things. If you need a short motivational podcast with a positive vibe that gets to the point quickly, I highly recommend that you follow or subscribe to the 5 Minute Pep Talk podcast today. And speaking of a pep talk, the purpose of this series is to inspire you to start your own podcast or be a podcast guest or even just use your voice in general. So I'm encouraging you to speak at a conference, give a talk at a library, get a group of your patients together and give them a talk. Use your voice. There is power in having a voice and using it. Thank you so much for listening to the Pharmacist Voice podcast, episode 357. The show notes are on thepharmacistvoice.com. In the show notes, you will find links to the 5 Minute Pep Talk podcast, Brooke's website, which is boldideagroup.com, her free Facebook group, her LinkedIn profile, and a link to the books that she mentioned today, which are Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert and Known. That's KNOWN, Known. The Handbook for Building and Unleashing Your Personal Brand in the Digital Age by Mark W. Schaefer. I also will put a link to Donald Miller's Story Brand book because I know we mentioned that today as well. I have several other links in the show notes, like my book on Amazon. So it's called Pharmacist Podcaster, a podcast planning guide for pharmacy professionals. Just in case you want to start a podcast, go ahead and pick up my book. I've also got my social media links to coach with me if you want to start a podcast, links to the other 12 episodes in this Pharmacist Podcasters series, and more. Everything you need is on thepharmacistvoice.com. If you've ever looked at my show notes, there are a ton of links. Now, if you know someone who would like this episode or wants to start a podcast, go ahead and share this episode with them. And if you like this podcast, come on back. We've got a lot more coming up here in 2025. Subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks so much for listening today. Happy podcasting, and I'll talk to you next week.